So today we're going to talk about the things that are necessary to configure in your SignTraker for communication of your SignTraker activity data, invoice data, over to your QuickBooks Online system. So first thing we're going to do, we're in a beta site here that we can play with, but we're going to go to our operational settings and we're going to choose the billing tab. Now, once we get there, you'll see a QuickBooks export section. In this case, we're not talking about QuickBooks Desktop, we're talking about QuickBooks Online, so we're going to choose that. And once we do that, we get a bunch of default settings that are presented here, which we can use as they are or change them if we need to. The default name format is going to be last name, first name. If you use a different approach, first name, last name, you choose what's appropriate. The sales account is where your income is reported to be going in your QuickBooks Online. So many cases, the default is simply sales, but if you have other sales or types of sales like signage or landscaping or home staging or whatever else, you might just put a sub account in here indicating sign services. So we'll do that. Sales tax rate name and sales tax code name. For US users, by default, these should be left blank, and QuickBooks Online will automatically choose the appropriate tax rate and tax code based on the settings you already have over in that application. You do want to set your default tax rate here to make sure you collect enough money in your SignTraker, but barring that, you don't really have to do anything else in your sales tax rate name or sales tax code name. The sales terms for invoices for SignTraker by default, that is called credit. You'll want to look in your lists in your QuickBooks Online to make sure you have this term established. Same thing with prepay. Often these are defaulted to different words, but you just want to make sure these match. And then for your income deposit account, this is for your prepay clients. The default is undeposited funds. So you want to make sure you have that there. And then the payment method for prepaid orders. If you're using prepayment in SignTraker, you want to identify the method of payment. It's different than saying a check or Visa or something like that. It's going to be called SignTraker prepaid. So we're going to make sure we set that in there too. Lastly, if you are in fact using a QuickBooks Online version that is being used for other services, pre-existing services, sometimes a prefix on the SignTraker invoice number helps out. That way, every invoice number that's generated by SignTraker, and remember each invoice or sales receipt is numbered based on the service number that you've created. This will prefix it with an ST. So if you happen to have an invoice number 1234 in your QuickBooks already, when SignTraker sends its invoice over, numbered 1234, it puts a ST in front of it, so there's no ambiguity. Lastly, if you're interested, you can exclude $0 items from your export. So for example, SignTraker system by default enumerates all activities that you provide for a sign installation. So for example, if you add a rider, it includes that, add a panel includes that. If you don't charge for those things, the line item charge would be 0. Some people would like to omit those from the export. If you select this button, those will be omitted, but otherwise it gives you all the detail for everything that you do. Now, let's go over and take a look at our QuickBooks Online. This is a sandbox company, but it's sufficient for us to use to go ahead and make sure we've got things configured appropriately. The first thing we're going to do is take a look at our chart of accounts and make sure that we have all the basic sales accounts that we need. One of them that we always need is accounts receivable, also called accounts AR. Oftentimes, this account is not included in a default QuickBooks Online build. So if it's not present, you want to create it. You're going to call it accounts receivable AR and leave all the defaults just as they are. If this comes up with default accounts receivable AR, you're going to want to go ahead and delete that because SignTraker is actually using the simple term accounts receivable. So once you have that, you're set on your accounts receivable. The next thing you want to do is take a look at your sales account. We mentioned that, right? So we want to see that we've got a sales account. We do have one here, but just for the sake of demonstration, we're going to edit this and show how you do this as a sub account. We're going to go ahead and create a new account, and it's going to be called an income account. And it's going to be called Sign Services. And it's going to be a sub account of sales. So this is how we'd specify sales : sign services. Detail type here is going to be income. Sales of product income, I should say. Once we have that, we're all set there. So next account we're going to look for is undeposited funds. There's our account, undeposited funds, and this is listed as an other current asset. That means that your undeposited funds, these are monies that have been collected through SignTraker but have yet to be deposited in your bank account. In fact, that'll happen in another day or two. So you want to create this account. The type of account is other current asset. It is undeposited funds type. This is the default type in QuickBooks Online. And the name, of course, is going to be undeposited funds. So once we have all that set, we'll be fine. That's good to go as well. Now we're going to look at the various terms that we have described to be used here. So we're going to go to our settings and then all lists, right? And the first name we want to look for is our sales terms. Sales terms. So that's going to be under terms. And we're going to be looking for our so-called due on receipt. That's our default for persons that are on credit terms. So we send them the receipt and the money is due immediately. Some people like to put 1 here so that on the day that they run their import, it doesn't look like everything's immediately overdue. So sometimes just putting 1 day there kind of makes things a lot easier. The other one we're looking for is the prepay, and we can see it's down here too. And prepay is what is being used to identify transactions that have been prepaid in your SignTraker. So the terms there are going to be called prepay. Going back to our list, the next thing we're going to look for is our payment methods. So we had a couple in here. One of the new ones was SignTraker Prepaid. We can see we've already got that established, but if you don't have it, you're going to click Add New, and you're going to set this up as simply SignTraker Prepaid. This just lets you know when you're looking at a sales receipt that's been paid, how did they pay it? Did they pay by cash? Did they pay by a check? Well, they prepaid it with a SignTraker prepayment. Now with all that, we should have everything set up quite well for our interface. We can now go back to our SignTraker here, choose the QuickBooks export link, and then choose Run Export. Now I'm going to choose October 6th. Looks like the last time we did this was September 6th. So I'll choose that and then choose Run Now. Give us a couple seconds as it goes about checking our invoices. Doesn't look like we have anything to do in that time period. So that's fine. You'll note down here there's some other, looks a little different type of thing here. These are prior exports using QuickBooks Desktop. So if you were using QuickBooks Desktop before, you might have a couple of lines that look like this, and then as you transition into QuickBooks Online, they'll start to look like this. And incidentally, if you have questions on how to use a QuickBooks interface or QuickBooks in general, along with some of the terms that are used in that interface, choose the Help button at the upper right-hand corner of the page for additional details. If you have any questions on how to use the QuickBooks Online interface, feel welcome to call our office. That's 443-938-9178, option 1, or simply email us at info@signtraker.com.